Good morning. Hey, this is Shane Schultz, and I am the executive producer of the ZubiaLive Channel. ZubiaLive is your interactive live streaming video community that specializes in health and wellness topics that affect you. You can find us on our social media at ZubiaLive or our website, ZubiaLive.com. Today we have a special show. It is our up close and personal workshop with Dr. Jeff Gardere. Dr. Jeff Gardere is a board-certified clinical psychologist and is well known in the entertainment industry as well as his community. And we are so very happy to have him here today. We're going to be talking about addiction and how it affects the family. In fact, the title is Addiction, It's Destroying My Family. So without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce Dr. Jeff Gardere. Dr. Jeff, it's great to have you here today.
Well, thank you, Shane. It's a pleasure to be with all of you on ZubiaLive and on our Facebook. Hello and welcome to the show. We want to hear your voice, your thoughts, your question on today's topic, how addiction may be hurting your family. Perhaps you have a friend or a family member who's going through addiction. Well, we want to hear what you have to say. Perhaps together we can come up with interventions. And that's what we're addressing today, especially during this holiday season when we know the addictions get really, really bad, really, really tough, not just for the individual, but also for the family, also for the friends. And so today we'll be talking about how you can receive an intervention. The best way to do that, perhaps you have to make your own intervention into your own life, and perhaps we have to put together a team of people who can make that intervention. You can join us on Facebook or Twitter at ZubiaLive, or email me at Dr. Jeff Gardere, Dr. Jeff rather, at ZubiaLive.com. So we're taking all of your questions. Shane is standing by to take your questions. Also joining us will be Ricky Jackson. He's my intern, incredible young man doing some great things. So thank you very much. And thank you very much to ZubiaLive.com. This is information center for all of your health issues, health challenges, from soup to nuts. Great programs on ZubiaLive.com. Go on the website. You'll see Dr. Elise and so many other great providers who will give you the information that can really change your life. So Shane, I'm so glad that we're doing this particular show. And we have to point out to everyone, Shane, that actually was your idea to come up with this intervention show. And I'd like for you to share with the audience why you felt that was so important.
Well, I happen to be an addict myself, so I am very familiar with being an addict, and I'm familiar with the holidays certainly exhibiting what myself being an addict was. Whether it be that, for me, addiction was in regards to being a problem gambler. And so while I was around family, while I was around friends and everything in that sense, there were many times as to where there were different sporting events and so forth that was going on during the holidays. And I was much more in tune with what was on the clock as opposed to what was going on or what somebody was saying to me, or maybe what would be on the TV. So I know that I exhibited my shortcomings. I exhibited my character defects when it came to being an addict. So I know that that happens certainly around the holidays. I also know that there are many different conversations that happen during the holidays when friends and family get together. And so there certainly are conversations in regards to people that are trying to help others. And there's nobody who needs more help than an addict when they're participating in their addiction, right?
Right. Now, I know some of you out there are saying, wait a minute, Shane Schultz, Dr. Jeff Gardere, calling people addicts. Why not just say people who have addiction issues or problems? But we use that term, and Shane, you've been very courageous to say, I am an addict. And the reason you say that is because it is a constant reminder to those of us who have addictions that we can never rest on our laurels of being clean and sober. So we say, and it's not putting ourselves down, once an addict, always an addict, but you can be an addict who's actually clean and sober. So it's the constant reminder. That's why people say, I am an addict. Even if they haven't used or had the addiction in 20 or 30 years, it's in many ways, Shane, isn't it about the humility of saying, I give it over to a greater power? I work every day at being clean and sober, but it's an everyday job, whether attending a 12-step program, whether it's going to treatment, whether it's reminding oneself to stay away from people, places, and things. When it comes to addiction, you have to remind yourself humbly that you're still an addict. Isn't that correct?
Well, there's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about that. And when you say people, places, and things, I'll mention three other things. There are three, resolutes when it comes to addiction, and that is, jails, institutions, and death. And I got to tell you, I played around with all three of those, and so with my addiction. And so it's very, very important. And that's why, I was, very strong-headed about what it is that I wanted to talk about here, because with it being the holidays, it certainly gives it the opportunity in order to help us to be able to help others. So that is, something that I know that you can do.
That's right. So if you are an addict, there should be no shame in your game. We want you to go ahead and email us. Shane, give out that information again for emailing, for Twitter, for texting, for calling. Please contact us now. Let's talk about it. Be a beacon in your community. If you are an addict who is actively using, or you actively have some sort of an addiction and you need that intervention, we are here for you right now on Facebook, on ZubiaLive, because we're going to work it out together. Today will be the beginning of the rest of your life in being clean and sober, helping you get there. Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired of having an addiction? Or maybe it's a situation of where you have an addict in the family. I didn't say addict. We all have addicts sometimes, right? I'm talking about an addict. If you have an addict in the family and that situation is destroying the family, today, right now, is your opportunity to reach out to us and let's talk about an intervention and helping that person in changing the family dynamics. And Shane, go ahead and give that information. And then I want to say one more thing before we start taking questions about families and addiction. So please give out the information where people can reach us.
Well, what we're going to do is we have a call-in show, and we also are going to be able to answer questions. If we don't answer them here on the show, we're certainly going to be able to have Dr. Jeff respond to your questions later on, whether it be today or whether it be throughout the week. We certainly are going to continue this conversation. It's very important to a lot of people. Dr. Jeff, we got a question right here. I'm going to ask you this one. Jennifer's been with us a number of times with our
Yes, she has. Hey, Jennifer.
So Dr. Jeff says, hi, guys, I'm an addict. I'm a food addict.
That's
something
right.
that a lot of people don't really think about. And she goes, I don't drink and I don't do drugs. Just about 35 pounds am gaining, not just because of me, but because of the meds that I take. That's not fun stuff. So, Dr. Jeff, what do you advise in regards to, Jennifer, I think, is trying to get out that there are other addictions other than the big two, which would be obviously drugs and alcohol.
That's right. There are other addictions out there. Shane, you talked about a gambling addiction. We can talk about sexual addictions, which we know are very real. Interestingly enough, ladies and gentlemen, the World Health Organization has now come out with the information that in the ICD-11, and this is what we use to diagnose all sorts of physical and psychological issues, international classification of diseases. In the ICD-11, they are now talking about a gaming addiction. That's right. We're talking about internet gaming. And so they're saying that if a person has persistent use of gaming, that they are impaired in the way that they're not able to stop the gaming, if they are escalating their gaming despite negative consequences. If this has been going on at least a year, though even though it's severe, they can now diagnose even earlier on, 3 months or 6 months, depending on how much time that person, usually a young person, is using that gaming, that they can now actually, again, when it comes out, be able to diagnose this as a gaming disorder. So yes, there are all sorts of addictions out there. And getting back to Jennifer's issue of food being an addiction, well, we know in many ways this is a self-medication. This is usually we see people have anxiety, or who have depression, or who have an eating disorder, which is anxiety-based, by the way, the eating disorders, and depression-based, that they can put on a tremendous amount of weight. And Jennifer is saying the medication she's taking, I'm not quite sure what they are. Maybe she'd like to specify at some point, but you don't have to, Jennifer. You know, some of those things are also adding on weight. We see those things as usually being a side effect of taking certain types of medication, especially antidepressants or anti-anxiety or other types of medications that may not be psychiatrically linked. So I would say to Jennifer, certainly one of the things that you've got to do, first of all, thank you for sharing. You're being courageous, and we want other people to share. And Shane, I still want you to give information that people can reach us again. But what I would suggest that you do is, first of all, talk to your physician. See what she or he, notice I said she first, because I believe women are superior to men in every way. Find out what she or he may say about the medications you're on. Maybe they can be tapered, tailored, or actually absolutely changed, so you can take medications that don't increase weight. Secondly, of course, if you are self-medicating on eating food, you've got to be in a treatment program. It's important, if you have an eating disorder, that you are seeing a psychologist, social worker, or psychiatrist. But I think the most important thing, and what we see from Jennifer, and Jennifer, this is what I love about you. You tell it the way it is. You shoot straight from the hip, no chaser, that it really is about not being in denial. And Shane, that is the major issue we see with people who may have an addiction and they're not getting the help. They're in denial. Or family members who have someone who is an addict. They may be in denial about that, and in many ways may enable that person. Maybe it's a son or a daughter. Let's face it, folks. As parents, we don't want to admit that our kids may have a serious addiction, and therefore we look the other way. And the other thing that we often see, Shane, and you know about this from your own experience, is this whole idea that family members get into the identified patient. What do I mean about that? Oh, the problem is Bobby. He's the problem. Bobby's the problem. Okay? Jill, she's the problem. So we as the family, we don't have an issue. If it wasn't for that addict, we'd all be perfect. But in many ways, the person with the addiction is the person who, for some reason, has accepted the role of being the scapegoat, has accepted the role of being the addict, and therefore manifesting a lot of the issues in the family. So be forewarned. If you want to make that intervention, and we're going to talk about tips as to how you can put together an intervention for someone, because you must save their lives, but understand the life you save may be your own, because then making that intervention, you have got to take responsibility in the family. Everyone has to take responsibility for the dysfunction in order to then help the addict take responsibility for their addiction too. Shane, please, once again, give out information, because we want to hear from all of you out there. Do you have a family member who has an addiction and you need to put together an intervention? Shane and I will help you with that. We have that experience. Are you an addict and you are sick and tired of being sick and tired and you want an intervention today? Please contact us. Let's talk about it. Do you have a success story you want to share with us as to an intervention you've made on yourself or with a family member or friend? Share that with us, because we are an empowering community here at ZubiaLive.com. So Shane, how can people reach us once again?
Well, as I was saying, this is also a call-in show. So we have a simulcast on a number of different Facebook pages, and it's also going to be on ZubiaLive.com. So this is a call-in show as to where you can call in and ask your question to Dr. Jeff right here and now to be able to get your questions answered. Now, the number that you would call is 1-646-876-9923. Now, when you use that number, you'll use the meeting ID number, and that number is 405-216-236. That's 405-216-236. Now, when you come in on your with your phone, what you want to do is you just want to simply hit *9, and that is going to notify us that you have a question. It's actually going to raise a hand here in the conference room so as to be able to know that you have a question. Same thing with those who are with us here live as a live participant. Over on the participant box, you can see where it says that you can raise your hand if you happen to have a question, and or you can also be able to send a chat message as well. Also, we are going to have, as we mentioned, Dr. Jeff, there's a lot of people out there that are watching the show. A lot of people have a lot of questions, and so they may not be able to get their question answered today, but you've agreed to go ahead and answer all questions. So that would be at Dr. Jeff at Zubia, or no, it's Dr. Jeff at ZubiaLive.com. Dr. Jeff at ZubiaLive.com. So we've got a lot of avenues in order to be able to make a difference in a big, big way.
Do me a favor, Shane, if you would. Ooh, teacher. Remember that?
Remember
the nerd in the classroom?
Now I look like a monkey.
Teacher, I have the answer. We'll take the answer from anyone but you, Bob. Okay?
Arnold Horseshack, right?
Yeah. Please give out the phone number and the instructions one more time. Or as Louis Armstrong would say, one more time, please.
That well. Okay, so if you're going to be calling in, you can call the number 1-646-876-9923. That's 1-846-876-9923. The meeting number that you'll use is 405-216-236. 405-216-236. We're going to be continually saying the number so that you can be able to get your questions answered here by Dr. Jeff on our Up Close and Personal workshop. Make sure to hit *9. That'll let me know that you have a question so that we can get things rolling and we can get you the help that you need. So, addiction, you've been talking about, drugs and alcohol. That's certainly been something that has been really, it's been going on for decades, right?
Yeah.
Recently, though, there is a big addiction, and it kind of goes along with what Jennifer was talking about because of her medications. And that is the opioid addiction scare right now. It's a big topic, Dr. Jeff. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, that's huge what's going on. It's actually a crisis in the United States, in the world. As we know, the former New Jersey governor is actually coming out with a huge intervention having to do with that. And I'm not commenting on the size of the former New Jersey governor, by the way. So what we're seeing is the opiate addictions are a major, major problem. There are a couple of reasons for that. Basically, I think it's a very ill society, very challenged society. Notice I didn't say sick society because, we want to keep it positive always, right? We do want to make America kind again. Not great again, kind again. It's already great. But a lot of people are hurting out there, financial issues, a lot of homelessness, a lot of young people part of this opiate crisis. As well, we see that there are major, major issues with some of the pharmaceutical companies. Some of them, not all of them, have been able to put a lot of those particular opiates out there to the physicians, and therefore some of the physicians are now prescribing or over prescribing a lot of pain meds. And therefore, when the pain meds come to an end, then people start going to the street drugs and start using some of the opioids out there. So that's a major, major issue. So this is ravaging many countries across the United States. So perhaps you have some sort of an opiate addiction. Maybe you have been on painkillers, which have been the gateway to illegal drugs, and you need some help with that. Well, reach out to us today. We will give you some resources. We will talk to you as to what you can do as far as being able to address your opiate addiction. But it does come with recognition, breaking out of the denial that you do have this problem, and you do need to get help, and you need to get medical help, by the way. Going cold turkey is very admirable, but when you're coming off heroin, for example, or one of the major painkillers, or propanol, or one of these sorts of really very severe drugs, it can kill you if you don't do it the right way.
You know, you had mentioned the medical side, right? And you know that I deal with chronic nerve pain because I have a neck injury, and I have a large audience in regards to chronic pain, chronic illness, and so forth. What is it that you have to say? I know that you're a doctor, and I know that, you know, that you have that community and that camaraderie, right? But what do you have to say about the fact that, you know, somebody like me is going to actually go to a doctor and they're going to put me on a prescription that is an opioid, right? And they get me to the point as to where it's like, this is supposed to help me. This is what it is that's supposed to get me to the pain level that I can manage, right? And now all of a sudden, society says, nope, you can't have what it is that you've been able to manage your pain with. And in fact, not only are they saying, no, you can't have it, but they're stigmatizing me as a pain patient to being an addict. When in fact, I didn't go to be an addict. I went to actually, you know, help my particular situation. What do you have to say when it comes to that topic there?
Sure. Well, two particular points I want to make, and that is a well-phrased question, Shane. And again, we want you all to weigh in with your questions and your comments on this, because I want to hear what you all have to say. I mean, it's great what I have to say. It's great what Shane has to say, but it's most importantly, what do you have to say? And so we want to share your thoughts on that. So first thought on that is, that's right. I think in many ways, society will point a finger and say, it's your fault. You went on these pain medications. You couldn't curb yourself off of that. Listen, bottom line is, there should be no blame game in dealing with someone who has any kind of an addiction, because it will only make them more ashamed. They'll go more into the woodwork. It really is about, this is an illness. These drugs, particular actions such as gambling, it begins to change the brain chemicals in our minds. We see dopamine is released much more. That's a reinforcing kind of neurotransmitter. And that says every time it feels good, dopamine is released. And it says to your mind, ooh, that was good, do it again. There's not enough serotonin, which actually helps us to be much, much more focused. We see epinephrine is released. That's an excitatory neurotransmitter that says, ooh, 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 let's have more. So what happens is the brain chemistry begins to change off the pain medications. The brain chemistry begins to change off of the actual addictions. So this is an illness. This isn't about weakness. This isn't about a person with, a very poor personality. This is someone who has a bona fide illness. So let's not play the blame game there. Secondly, when it comes to the pain meds, I think our physicians are starting to get it. Don't overwhelm a person with pain meds. Don't keep writing prescriptions and giving them unchecked refills. Instead, at the same time, start looking at pain management, behavioral management. Start looking at alternative medicine. Start looking at acupuncture. Start looking at holistic medicine. Start looking at osteopathic medication with musculature manipulations and different ways to be able to deal with this particular pain. that's the way to do it, because honestly, those pain medications are a gateway to street drugs, especially if you just cut off or you can't afford the medications or you get too much of them. Now, I have a confession to make. I had, Shane, a lot of pain on nerves, a lot of nerves in my pain, a lot of pain in my nerves.
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah.
And I had to use some pain medications, but I eventually tapered myself off and got there so it didn't turn into a real issue, medical issue. But that's what we have to work with. So if Shane and Dr. Jeff have had nerve pain and they've been able to manage it, you can do it too, because we're just two regular guys, right?
Right. And, you know,
and Shane has a full head of hair. I don't, you know, so I'm half the man I used to be, but we're able to do it, you know, so nerve pain, something not to mess around with. By the way, Shane, the way that I finally got rid of my nerve pain, divorce. All right. Let's take some questions. Any questions coming up?
Well, you know, before we even get to another question real quick, you mentioned street drugs and the fact that, I mean, the CDC is actually enrolling heroin addiction deaths into this opioid investigation in regards to, you know, it being the addiction process. I mean, so it's like, that's real. I mean, whether or not that it's somebody who's using heroin as, you know, a recreational drug, or whether it's somebody who's using heroin to curb their pain because they've been taken off of painkillers. I mean, that's something that's pretty big. I mean, for now, the national statistics are actually involving street drugs as part of, you know, the statistics of opioids.
Well, and not just that, you're absolutely correct, but not just that. For example, people who've been prescribed oxycodone, guess what? They don't get it from their physician any longer, or nurse practitioner or physician's assistant. What do? They go out and buy it on the street, and they get as much as they can, and the quality can be very, very poor, and no one is monitoring, no one is looking at what it's doing to that individual. Let's make something very clear here, folks, okay? And this is important that you understand this. When you take drugs, street drugs, in a way that is unchecked, you're doing untold damage to your body and your mind.
And you don't know what you're getting, right?
And you don't know what you're getting. And if that addiction goes on for years and years and years, where you're abusing your body and your mind, even after you clean up 20 or 30 years later, the damage is done. It's like smoking. Even after 20, 30 years of smoking, the damage is done. So should you then not bother stopping? Of course you should stop, but you should stop the damage. And so the earlier you're able to quit and curb that addiction, the better off it will be. So is there a situation of where, well, you've been doing it all these years, it doesn't matter? Absolutely not. If you've been addicted for 30 or 40 years, I've known people who've been functional heroin addicts for 30, 40 years, using every day and still able to go to work.
Yep.
It's amazing, okay? It's still worth stopping. But the longer you take, the longer the toll on your mind and on your body.
All right. Well, I think we covered that. So you had mentioned denial, and we have a question from Nellie. Nellie is asking, how do I confront my family member to help them, knowing that they are in extreme denial?
Whoa, Nellie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If someone is in extreme denial in your family, you may not be the only person who can try to break through. Nellie, I don't know what your relationship is with this family member. I'm sure it may be a very strong one, because I know the name Nellie is a strong name, and we can always count on the Nellies, right? But the important thing is, don't make the intervention by yourself. Try to get other family members and friends and people who this person who is an addict trusts to be part of that intervention. And the thing about interventions, Nellie, it's not a one-shot deal. Oh, I've got to tell you about yourself. No, it's something that can be continuing conversations. Interventions have to be done. And the thing about interventions, Nellie, places in any opportune situation where you may be either planning it and letting the person know the intervention is happening, or do a pop-up intervention. You heard of pop-up shops, right?
Right.
Pop-up intervention where you show up to that person's house and say, first and foremost, and here's how you open it: we love you. We are concerned about you. That's where you start. And then you spend the time with that individual, whether it's an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, the whole damn day, but surrounding them with love, surrounding them with tough love. And they may not like you for it, but guess what? They will love you when they are clean and sober. So it is about just continually just letting them know, Nellie, how much you love them. But as much as they try to deny, just keep, more than anything, just keep pointing out the different behaviors that are part of that addiction.
Yeah, Nellie is mentioning that it's her son.
Wow. And that makes it even tougher.
Really does. Yeah.
That makes it even tougher because this is your son. This is the person presumably you've given birth to. It's your son, regardless. So you've got to make that intervention. I am sure this young man trusts you more than anyone else. And Nellie, I'm going to say something to you right now that I know is going to be very difficult for you to hear. But I'm going to say it, and as parents, we all have to own this. You have to look at where you have to take responsibility, Nellie. Some responsibility for where your son may be as an addict. Maybe there were some things that were missing at home. Maybe there were some issues with your child's father or husband, whatever the case may be. Maybe you were not as available as you needed to be. That being said, you don't blame yourself. Don't blame yourself, Nellie, because you're a courageous woman. I know that you are. But it's also important that if you could take a look at yourself, it's then easier to then address whatever the issues are with your son and to help your son. Because let's make another true confession here. And I've dealt with this myself. As a father of 6 children, I've made a lot of mistakes. I've been through a painful divorce. I wasn't always there for my children. Okay? I did some things that were screwed up in my life because I came from a family that were at times screwed up. And they came from parents who were at times screwed up. It's a generational thing. And my kids have not had addiction issues, but they've had emotional issues. And after I've taken responsibility, Nellie, it's been easier for me to make interventions with my children. And it's an ongoing process with my kids. It's going to be an ongoing process, Nellie, for you with your son. So this is not in any way to blame you. It's about us all taking responsibility. Because think about it, Nellie. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. As parents, if we can take responsibility, now we're role modeling for that addict in our family and saying, I will deal with my pain. I will recognize my pain. I will recognize my imperfections. Now I need for you to recognize yours. And I am here for you and I love you. And that's where it goes. That's how we do it. It's not easy. It's not easy as ABC or 1, 2, 3, as the Jackson 5 said, or Do, Re, Mi. Okay? It really is about the hard work, and it may take many, many interventions, but don't do it alone. Bring in family and friends who can support you and back you up. But I know, Nellie, You can do this. And if you need us here at ZubiaLive.com, if you need to talk to us, Shane is here. He's been through it. I'm here. I've been through it. Our community at ZubiaLive is here. We can do this together.
Yeah, and one thing that you pointed out, Dr. Jeff, is that you may not be able to do it alone. And that really it's not recommended that you do it alone.
No.
Because there's a whole lot that is on the shoulders of somebody who is trying to help another person, especially when that other person is an addict. Mm-hmm. Folks, if you're watching this show on Facebook, you can go ahead and do your comments right there. I can see where it is that you are asking your questions. We have a few of them already. But if you want to actually call in, you can do that at 646-876-9923. 646-876-9923. Use the meeting ID number as 405-216-236. 405-216-236. When you come in, and if you have a question, hit *9, and that will give me the heads up that you have a question, and we will get your question answered right here on the show. All right, so Dr. Jeff.
By the way, Shane, can we block any numbers coming in?
Block any numbers? Why?
Because I'm afraid that my ex-wife's attorney may be calling for alimony. Alimony payments due.
That's a totally different addiction that you may have to deal with, and that's those types of calls. People do get addicted to those types of calls.
All right, so let's release the questions. Come on, more questions.
All right, so Sarah is asking, how do you conduct an intervention without seeing like you're ganging up on that family member, and should you present positive notes that are read out loud for the person who is an addict to listen to?
Yeah, absolutely. Sarah, wonderful, wonderful. So proud of you. The answer is within the question. It is important that when you make that intervention, now we've seen interventions being done on TV, people screaming and yelling and crying, and yes, that happens, but try to maintain some dignity in doing this. Try to keep it as positive as possible. Now, it's going to get down and dirty sometimes, but it's just really important that you understand that you want to uplift the person, not bring them down. Because guess what? The addict already feels like a piece of dirt. They already feel that they are nothing. This is an addict who might have been selling their bodies on the street in order to continue to fund their addiction, to continue to medicate. They may have stolen from family and friends. Family, you know about this, don't you? Your own family stealing from you. That addict stealing from a mother and father. It's heartbreaking. But that's why it's important that when you make that intervention, first of all, have a meeting with the people who are going to make that intervention. Come up with an outline. Come up with as many positive factors that you want to be able to present to that person. Let them know, again, I said this before, how much you love them, and no matter what, that you've got their back, okay? You've got their back. But more importantly, that you are going to make sure that they get help. And here's the line. I know, Richard, you want to hate me on this. I know, Regina, that you are so angry that we are in your home and making this intervention. I know that right now you want to annihilate us emotionally. You're so rageful and you want us to mind our business. Guess what? You are our business. We love you, and we're going to make this intervention, and we're going to continue making the intervention. So another part of this, Shane, very quickly, because I want to go back to questions, is also have all of your resources ready. Don't do this on the fly. Plan it, have an outline, know who's going to play which roles in this intervention, but make sure you have a treatment facility standing by, the names of physicians standing by, the names of or locations of emergency rooms, who's going to accompany this person, who's going to stay with this person while the intake is being done, is there insurance, have all of that stuff together, because one of the things that while you're in this kind of chaos that may be going on with having that person admitted, you want it to be as organized as possible, because the chaos may add more to the dysfunction. So try to make it as organized as possible.
Yeah, Dr. Jeff, you had mentioned earlier in the show about being a functioning addict. We have a question from Jeff, no pun intended here.
Yeah, I hate that name, Jeff, by the way. No, this Jeff I like.
Well,
but,
it's spelled differently.
Well, yeah, I'm Haitian American. My parents are from Haiti, and so we're African and French. Right. So I wish my parents would have named me Victor or Jean-Paul Gardere or something like Edouard. They came up with Jeff.
I could see Victor.
Jeff.
I could see Victor. All right, so Jeff with Geoff.
The British Jeff.
Yes.
Excuse me, Jeff.
Jeff is asking the question. It's a very serious question. His father is an alcoholic. He says, my father is an alcoholic, but he does not exhibit the normal signs that everybody talks about. He doesn't miss work. He doesn't get arrested. In fact, for most of the day, he's enjoyable as a person. But at night, when alone, he drinks himself to sleep and is often barely conscious by the time that he goes to bed. Yeah. He can become mean, not physically, but, in verbally abusive. Mean
drunk. Yes.
Yeah. And when we explain it to him, he has a problem. He starts pointing out to the fact that he does not exhibit the normal signs as others would exercise, and that he isn't an alcoholic. How can we make it clear that you don't have to be a fallen down drunk in order to be known and to still be an alcoholic?
This is an excellent question, Jeff, because so many people deal with it. So many people border on alcoholism. So many people are functional alcoholics. I think the best thing you could do with your dad is try to give him as much information as possible as to what an actual alcoholic is. An alcoholic can be I think the person, especially when they're not drinking or they're beginning to drink. But it's when they've been drinking through the day or through the evening, then they then become that mean drunk. Everything becomes loose. They become completely uninhibited. The brain chemistry changes. The GABAergic neurons, GABA, which means neurons in the brain that make you so relaxed that you have no more inhibitions. All of those processes then make you lose control. And I think if you could show him that information, that qualifies, perhaps you could start getting through in that way. But I would say two other things you can do. The intervention, in addition to giving information, and by the way, I wouldn't say to a person like your dad, from the way you describe him, we're coming in to make an intervention, Dad. It's just perhaps at a dinner, have family members and friends who are there and say, Dad, we want to talk to you about something. We know this is difficult for you to hear. Maybe you don't believe what it is that we may be telling you, but we want you to hear it anyway, and begin to present that information perhaps in a non-confrontational way to this individual. Okay? So we have the information, we have the non-confrontation, but family members being there, and then have each and every family member let your dad know, including you, Jeff, how much you love him and you really want to save his life. Even though he feels everything is okay, that you all are concerned and scared. If it's one person he hears it from, Jeff, that person is a complainer. He hears it from two people. It's a coincidence. They're saying the same thing. But when you start hearing it from 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, that denial begins to now break down. And now reality begins to intrude. And if you want the tried and true method as to then what you can do, accompany your dad to a physician and have that physician take liver tests, look at liver functioning. Inevitably, I guarantee you, or can almost guarantee you, that you'll see the breakdown of vital organs from the actual years and years of alcohol use. If you do an MRI on his brain, you may see certain parts of the brain now are starting to atrophy. There's something called Korsakoff syndrome, where we see in the thalamus of the brain that the individual now, the neurons are dying there, and that person becomes much more agitated. They start having memory issues, and they start having many other personality changes. So once you start giving all of that and gathering all of that medical information, there may be a stigma there for your dad, Jeff, as far as alcoholism, but you cannot deny the actual results of a medical exam, which says you've got to stop drinking or you are going to die. And that's where the intervention then comes from the physician.
Well,
those lab tests.
You mentioned, visual, right? And being able to see the test and everything. And that. I know somebody whose father is an alcoholic, and what they did is that they actually had a video camera. They actually ran the video camera during the evening, which is when her father would normally end up, exhibiting those traits of being an alcoholic. Yeah. And what she did not confront him with it. What she did is that she actually at the time she put it was a DVD or CD, whatever it was, and she put it on the table and she put a note, "Please watch this." And so the father watched it and saw with his own two eyes that there were times that his behavior was certainly different with using alcohol during those times, and it made a difference where it's like now they see it, right? And now they see what it is that's going on. And the point that I'm making here is,
I love that, by the way, Shane.
Yeah.
I mean, that is an incredible intervention, because I know back in the day when you dealt with this, I don't think it was DVDs. I think it was
VHS.
Okay. For me, it was the actual spools on the camera. Right?
8 millimeters.
Right, exactly. But these days, it really is about just taking your cell phone.
Yeah.
And just recording. Yeah. Unless it's an iPhone 7 and it's been slowed down by Apple, maybe it might or may not work. Apple, I want a free battery. But you can use, unless you want to be a sponsor, then we good. But you can then use your cell phone easily to take what's going on. And you wanted to make one more point on that, Shane.
Well, the point is that when somebody is participating in their addiction, and that whether they're functioning or whether they are not, they are sick. They do not realize what the heck is going on. They don't realize that they are hurting you half the time.
Yeah.
They they really don't know what the heck is going on. They just know that they are subservient to what it is that they are addicted by.
That's right.
And it doesn't matter what it is that we're talking about. It doesn't matter whether it's drugs, doesn't matter whether it's alcohol, doesn't matter whether it's gambling, doesn't matter whether it's food. Dr. Jeff, you were recently on another show as to where, you were talking about it earlier today, and that's gaming. And when you were talking about gaming, just to make it clear, we're not talking about gambling. We were talking about gaming as in like video games.
That's right.
And so that they are now starting to look at that as being a possible addiction. And one of the things that you mentioned,
and even if not an addiction, a real challenge,
a very real challenge. And one of the things that you mentioned is that there was no withdrawal to gaming, or it hasn't been proven that there's withdrawal there. Right. But the withdrawal is what is part of that addiction, right? And
That's right.
it's very uncontrollable.
That's right.
not, it's almost unmanageable. You
Well,
know,
I'll tell you what. When we're talking about addiction, we talk about, and you all know this, so if you don't, we'll tell you, tolerance and withdrawal have to be part of that, especially with, right, with drugs and alcohol and so on. Tolerance, you need more of it in order to get high or to avoid withdrawal, and withdrawal where you actually have withdrawal. So that was what we're starting to see with these gaming issues, internet gaming that a lot of our kids are involved in. The tolerance may not be there. We don't know because the software changes all the time.
right.
So the tolerance is kind of built in.
Different
We need better
stimulant.
and better versions,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But the withdrawal, we could see it. I could see it in my own kids that if they're not able to play a video game for 4 hours straight and I say, okay, you have to go to bed, they start acting out like crazy. So the withdrawal that is there. So bottom line is, perhaps you even have a child who's dealing with some sort of a challenge. I can't call it an addiction right now with gaming because it's not official, but where they just spend too much time on it, where it interferes with school, where it interferes with work, where it interferes in social relationships, and you want to make that intervention. That's something, again, that we can talk about. By the way, Ricky, let me grab this water here. This is my Rubio impression. Hold on. Now here's my Trump impression. Hold on.
Oh no. That's all right. That's a different kind of an issue there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a couple more questions here, and then we're going to start wrapping it up.
All right, let's do it.
So,
and I'll answer them. I'll answer them quickly. Let's do like a lightning round.
Lightning
okay?
round, all right?
Here we go.
Here's one that kind of takes me off guard because the person that sent in the question, although I can almost understand it, and let's see what you think. There's the question from the audience here. What can family do if the addict is addicted to going to rehabs and finds himself enjoying the process so very much that he keeps drinking?
Wow, that is a tough one. And I rarely hear of that one because most rehabs are not, most rehabs don't want you to come back, right? They have an aftercare program. But again, we said lightning round, right? So here's the answer that I have for you. Perhaps the rehabs that your loved one may be going to is one of those country club rehabs. Fun, sun, though it's never fun, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
You know, you have great weather. It's like $1 million facility. Maybe you need to start looking at the particular rehabs that your loved one is going to, and you need something that's going to be a little bit more hard as nails kind of a rehab that may not be as extravagant. Some of them, let's face it, are designed to be, you know, vacation getaways, and there's a reason for that, so that you can get rid of the stress and ease yourself into getting that treatment, especially if you're in denial. So there's a place for that. But now it may be time for this family member to stop going to those types of rehabs and go to something that is more like a boot camp. Next question.
All right, the next question is, and it actually comes from Nellie. We already had a question from Nellie in regards to her
Nellie
son.
deserves another question and an answer. She's a tough lady.
Well, she says, I've called around for interventions, and they cost around $3,500. So, Dr. Jeff, can you give her some advice as to where she might be able to do it some way, in a different way, to be manageable?
Well, I would think one of the things you want to do, Nellie, because I hear about this, that people can't afford some of these interventions. Sometimes you may have to do something at a public hospital. And so the treatment center is also part of a psychiatric ward. And that may not be such a bad thing, because we know addictions are about psychiatric issues, are about medical issues. So it may not be a fancy place. It may be a little bit of a wait list, but I would say that perhaps you should look there. Now, another option, and this happened with a friend of mine who was a crack cocaine addict. She couldn't afford the intervention. So what she did was she worked out a way where she could get the intervention, but then pledged herself to actually work at that center for the next year for free to pay back for that intervention.
That's a great idea.
Hey,
great idea. I can also attest to that and I can attest to both questions because I've been in rehabs, I've been in inpatient stays, as to where what happened is that we would sit there and we would be in a safe place. We would have a safe diet. We would have safe sleeping habits. We would have our medications and so forth. So yeah, you do end up feeling better when you're in a rehab. There's a reason for that, because you're addressing what it is that's going on. So as a parent or as somebody who's supporting another addict, that's what it is that you really want to, really work with, is to understand that these basic concepts make a big difference in a life. So,
here's a little well-known fact, okay? A lot of people who perhaps the gateway was not pain medications. The gateway was a psychiatric issue. So if they're feeling a lot of anxiety or depression, they may get on for depression. They may start using cocaine. Ooh, I'm up, feel better. I'm not as depressed, of course, until the cocaine wears off.
Right.
Or if I'm really anxious, well, let me, get some ganja, a blunt, weed, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, or what my parents called it in Haiti, marijuana, okay? You may want to do, some people may want to do that. But, and Shane, you know this, what do you do when you go into a hospital or a facility for intervention? They begin to wean you off the street drug and put you on psychiatric medications. So let's cut out the middleman here, all right? Let's cut out the person who is supplying the drugs on the street. And if you have anxiety, depression, an issue like that, go see a therapist. Get a behavioral intervention. Learn cognitive behavioral strategies, or perhaps psychiatric meds may help you better than being on street drugs.
All right, back to our lightning round here. So what if somebody does an intervention? Okay, so what if they go back? What if they go back to their addiction? You've already done the intervention once. Does it make sense in order to do multiple interventions?
Absolutely. You never give up on the person who perhaps may relapse. And guess what, folks? Relapse is part of being clean and sober. Relapse is part of drug treatment. 90% perhaps of people relapse. And when they relapse, we don't throw them to the street. We don't kick them to the curb. We help them. We dust them off, brush them off, stand them on up, and start all over again. And guess what? You're not really starting all over again. You're looking at what did not work in the intervention, and then you modify it, and then the person already has a running start in now being sober. And so falling off the wagon, relapse happens. So as many times as you have to make the intervention, guess what? It's a blessing, because you don't have to make an intervention when someone's dead, do you?
Well, another point is I have close to 10 years in recovery from my addiction. Now, that's not 10 straight years. I've had, little bumps in the road. I call them speed bumps, right? And so, but I've had for the better part of 10 years. So even though that somebody might go back to their addiction for a short period of time, if you treat it as like that's the end all that be's all, an addiction related person that's going through what it is that they're going to go through, they're going to feel the stress, they're going to feel the shame, they're going to feel everything like that, and then they're going to run. That's their character. That's what's
and they may not tell you what's going on. They may pretend everything's okay, but it's not. They'll be like Pagliacci. Where they'll have that clown face on, but the invisible tears are coming down.
Right, right. And
all right, next question.
Last question is that what constitutes as long enough in a rehab? And I've got my own ideas on this, but go ahead.
Well, I'm afraid to give an answer if you have your own idea, Shane.
No, you know what my idea is on this.
I would say as long as it takes. What's been happening with some rehab places is that they prematurely let a person out because they don't have enough money or because they don't have enough insurance. So we see some of these treatment facilities go anywhere from 14 days. The average is about 28 days, but some go as long as 6 months, some even to a year, depending on what the person wants to do. But we're seeing an average around 28 days. But as far as I'm concerned, it's not one size fits all. When the treatment plan is being made, we have to look at how much time will the person really need. And even if they are discharged after 28 days, maybe they may need to come back. Shane, your ideas on this?
Well, first of all, it's one day at a time. So I
like that too.
That's number one.
One day at a time, sweet Jesus.
Now, the other thing is that in order to break just a regular pattern, any pattern, it's going to take anywhere between 60 to 90 days just to break a pattern, just of any kind. So that just so that it becomes something that's second nature as to where you're able to do that. When it comes to addiction, you're talking about more than just a pattern. You're talking about an illness. So this is continual that happens every day. So what you want to really keep in mind is it's one day at a time. It's each and every day. And so, and not only that, but even though that's a rehab because of insurance, right? The rehab may only be 28 days. It may be 28 to 30 days.
Right.
That means that the supporters of the person as the addict has to help to continue that process.
That's so right, that especially the aftercare. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So that they can break it and make that a possibility to where they can make their addiction manageable while not participating in that addiction. And that's so very important.
Right. And let's be clear here, folks. Even after you are discharged from the hospital or the treatment facility, it is important that you continue to get outpatient services on a weekly basis for some time. It's important that you are in a 12-step program. And for some of you, that may mean attending some sort of a Gamblers Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, whatever, Narcotics Anonymous, Sexaholics Anonymous. Attend that every single day for a long period of time. Until then, you can go once a week or once a month or wherever you need a booster session. And it's also important that you have a sponsor. But the most important thing as we close, the intervention is always a good idea. Whether you have to make the intervention on yourself, whether we are making it for a family member or a friend, what is indisputable is that you cannot continue to live as an active addict. You will end up, as Shane has said, in an institution, in jail, in a mental hospital, or, God forbid, dead. So it's important that we make that intervention. Folks, thank you so very much for joining me today. Please continue to send us questions. And if we have a lot of questions, we'll do a continuation of this particular show on what do you do with some sort of an addiction, either for yourself or making an intervention for someone else. And don't forget that you can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Jeff Gardere, Twitter at Dr. Jeff Gardere, and Facebook at Dr. Jeff Gardere. Remember, you can check us out on ZubiaLive, and there is a complement of great health programming on Zubia.live. Make it your new home. I guarantee you, this is where a house will be a home. Tune in next week for another Dr. Jeff Up Close and Personal workshop. And remember, let's make America kind again. Have a great day, an amazing week, a happy new year, happy holidays, and Shane, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Jeff. Yes, if you have a question about addiction, or if you have a question in regards to other things, you can certainly give an email or message to Dr. Jeff. That's Dr. Jeff at ZubiaLive.com. Dr. Jeff has graciously agreed to go ahead and to answer all questions that are coming to him at that email address. That's Dr. Jeff at ZubiaLive.com. And like Dr. Jeff had mentioned, live stream is all what Zubia is about. Live streaming so that you can bring awareness to a topic or a story that regards health and wellness in your life. So we want you to go ahead and get to our live stream app, which is on ZubiaLive.com or your favorite app location, where you can go ahead and you can let us know what it is that you think about the show today, what it is that you think about the show throughout the weeks. We have the Dr. Jeff Show. We also have the Women's Health Beat with Dr. Felice Gersh, and we have a number of shows that are in the mix of what's going to be coming in for 2018. Really looking forward to it. Very excited about what Zubia Live is there for not only ourselves, but also for you, the audience. You are the ones that are actually making the platform happen. All right. So we want to say thank you for watching, and we hope to see you again next week. And definitely look out for the Dr. Jeff Show, which is on Wednesday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And I know, Dr. Jeff, that you are making a difference, and we so much appreciate you. Take care, everybody.